Today we're going to finish Samuel Volume 1. Be'ezrat Hashem, next week we'll start the second part of the book of Samuel, Volume 2. But with no further talking, I would like to dedicate the shiur in the name of Esther Kaden Bat Ketia, Mordechai Ben Rachma, Tamar Bat Zeava, Farha Bat Salcha, Malka Regina Bat Joy, Yaakov Salmon Ben Farha, Yafa Bat Kalman, Nahum Ze'ev Ben Israel. That's our friend Norman Mendel, that today was his unveiling. It's a year since he passed away. So for a full year, Baruch Hashem, we dedicate the shiur in his soul. And Norman, as you all know, was one of the pioneers of the shiur. He never missed a shiurim. Whenever he can, he joined. Even when he moved to the Golden Acres, he was still joining us on Zoom. So today was his unveiling, and we dedicate the shiur in his soul. Also, I would like to dedicate the shiur in the soul of Shmuel ben Dodo, Eliyahu Meir ben Farha. Nishmatam tiyeh tzurura b'tzur haim. Also, I would like to dedicate the shiur in health of Liora bat Miriam, Menashe Naji ben Farha, Arav Moshe ben Bayabati, Arav Moshe ben Devo, Arav Shlomo Yehuda ben Dalia, Arav Yitzhak ben Yamna, Arav Avraham ben Marina, Arav Shimon Tzion ben Hana, Dvora bat Esther, Sheina Keila bat Hana, Mordechai David ben Leah, Yehuda Hillel ben Shulamit, Leah Haim Nahum ben Pesa Reza Kohen, Yael bat Dorid, Yehuda ben Eliezer, Meir ben Yehuda, Gabriel ben Chaya, Sheina Leah, Pesach Yitzhak ben Ela, Ayala Eden bat Rivka, Tzvi ben Chava, Orna Bluma bat Rachel, Yael bat Dorit, and also David Israel Iser ben Devora Hena. Okay, that he's sitting in a house jail, in a house jail in Cyprus, as you all know, that we're hoping that he's going to be released soon. So with no further talking, Rabotai, we're going to start chapter 31. But before, I would like to do introduction to chapter 30 to remind us what we study, and that will help us to continue. In the beginning of chapter 30, we learn that after 3 days that David HaMelech and his men was with Achish Melech Gad, that they want to join the war against the Jewish people, because David have a plan that he gonna take the Plishtim from the back, while Shaul gonna take him from the front, and they're gonna kill the Plishtim. But what's happened? We know that the ministers of Plishtim didn't agree, they didn't trust David HaMelech, and they put an ultimatum to Achish Melech Gad and force him to send David and his men after 3 days to back. And David HaMelech and his men returned back after 3 days to the city of Ziklag, only to find out that now we have a different problem. The problem was that the Amalekim, attacked the city and they kidnapped. And not only that they kidnapped, that they took all the men and the women, all the women and the children, and they took them away and they burned the city. When David HaMelech and his men saw what's happened in the city, they actually didn't understand what's happened, and they start crying. All they can do is sit and cry and cry and cry. We explained that David HaMelech and his men was crying so much that they didn't have any more energy to continue crying. They got to a stage that they almost ran out of energy. So David HaMelech and his men was crying. We also explained that David's men blamed David HaMelech for that situation. How can he leave as a leader the city of Ziklag, the women and the children, with no someone to make sure to protect them. Why didn't leave men behind it? Not only that, David HaMelech, as a man's soldiers, let's call them, wanted to stone him. And that difficult time that David HaMelech was, out of nowhere, he got energy and he stood up on his feet and he said, not for nothing, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made that. And he started looking at the city and he's saying to his men, Rabotai, we need to start chasing the Amalekim. Everyone looked at him like David HaMelech fell out of the moon. He said to them, look, there is no one casualty of the people in a city. There is no casualty in a city. That means that the Amalekim didn't kill anyone, no woman, no man. It can't be. It's all from Shamayim. We need to start chasing. We don't have time. David HaMelech and all of his 600 men start chasing, okay, or try to trace where the Amalekim go. Not only that, David HaMelech suddenly, 200 of his men said that they exhausted and they can't continue in a chase. David HaMelech said to them, no problem, you stay here, there is no problem. What's happened? David HaMelech's men found Eved Mitzri, Egyptian slave. Okay, who was those? We explained was the 200 men that stood behind. And they called David HaMelech and he come and interrogate him. David HaMelech managed to find out with his help where they're hiding. And David HaMelech told his men that they, with the 400 men that he was, that they're going to attack only in darkness. David HaMelech and his men decide to strike the Amalekim after darkness, and it was a great victory for David HaMelech and his men. Not only that they killed the Amalekim, all the Amalekim except 400 men from the Amalekim, youngsters, that managed to escape, and we explained that those 400 men that was riding the camel that managed to escape, there was a reincarnation of the 400 men that came when Esav came to meet Yaakov Avinu. And they said to Esav, listen, your brother is a righteous man, we're going to leave. We don't want any problem with the righteous man. HaKadosh Baruch Hu reincarnated and saved their life. Now, when David HaMelech attacked him, we explained that David HaMelech, not only that he released all those that been captured, okay, all of those that been kidnapped, David HaMelech also returned all the spoil that the Amalekim took from his city, from the city of the house of Judah, Yehudah, and he returned back and he gave it all away to those that they belong. And David HaMelech and his men returned back with all their wife and their kids. That basically how chapter 30 end up. In chapter 31 that we're going to learn today, Rabotai, we're going to learn about the death of Shaul HaMelech and his 3 kids. Shaul HaMelech had 4 kids, but only 3 of them that gone to the war. There is a mahloket if they gone to the war, all 4 of them, or only 3. The most common thing that it say that they all gone to the war, and the younger child been managed to been taken by Yoav, vice versa. One of his kids didn't die in this war. So בעזרת השם נעשה ונצליח. Chapter 30 verse 1. ופלישתים נלחמים בישראל, וינוסו אנשי ישראל מפני פלישתים, ויפלו חללים בהר הגלבוע.
The Philistines were battling with Israel, and the men of Israel ran off from before the Philistines and fell slain upon Mount Gilboa.
Mm-hmm. On a pshat of the Dvarim, the prophet here described that the Plishtim fighting with the children of Israel, and the children of Israel and Shaul HaMelech actually not only that been defeated by the Plishtim, many of them been killed on Mount Gilboa. But there is here something very important that it say here in the pasuk that we have to understand. What does it mean? Vayanusu anshe Israel mipnei Plishtim. That many of the children of Israel start to run away from that war. What does it mean? Vayanusu anshe Israel, the men of Israel. Shat of the Dvarim, the soldier. Nahon, it is a soldier, but we have to understand what hiding behind it. Rabotai, in daytime, we explained that they used to go to a valley, and the two armies used to fight against each other all day. At night, they used to stop. In every army used to be special soldiers that used to stand behind with metal change. That if someone from the forces will try to escape the war, they will hit him on the leg and he become a cripple. To show that bravery, that no one, because Hazal say that when there is menusa, escape, that's the beginning of the defeat. So in every army used to stand people at the back, that their job was to stop those that want to run away from the war. And they used to have a metal change, and they used to hit those, even their own people that are trying to run away, in the leg, and used to make them cripple. Said the Mefarshim in this war, that even those people that their job was to stop the soldier from running away, they also ran away. Mm-hmm. They were so frightened that everyone ran away. David HaMelech, Shaul HaMelech, and his three sons. We learn what's happened. So by that it says, Vayanusu anshe Israel mipnei Plishtim, Vayiplu halalim behara Gilboa. That even those that their job was to stop the soldier from now running away from the war, they was the first one to flee. We can understand what kind of a war. In verse 2, look what's happened. וידבקו הפלישתים את שאול ואת בניו, ויכו פלישתים את יונתן ואת אבינדב ואת מלכישוע בני שאול.
The Philistines overtook Saul and his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua, the sons of Saul.
Okay, what's happening here? Here, the prophet tells us that Saul, King Saul, Shaul HaMelech, Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. Who's missing? Mephibosheth. That's the fourth son of Shaul HaMelech that never been killed, that I explained earlier. What's happening in this verse? In this verse, the prophet described that the Plishtim managed to catch Shaul, to catch up with Shaul and its three sons. But we learn from here one thing. The Mefarshim explains something extraordinary. That even Avner ben Ner, that was the minister or the chief of staff of Shaul, he also escaped from the war. Who died in this war? They will see that three of the sons of Shaul HaMelech died. Shaul HaMelech himself didn't die yet. When it said that they managed to catch with them, that means that here happening something very interesting. That those that used to use the bow and arrow, the arrow start getting and reaching where Shaul HaMelech is, where Yonatan, Avinadav, and Malkishua. That means that when it said that they catch with them, it was the bow and arrow, and that's the Hidush here. Okay? What's happened? We see from here something very interesting. That Shaul HaMelech and his three sons didn't run away. They continue to fight. How that they managed to reach to them and they tried to escape, but they were still fighting. They were still fighting with the Plishtim, with the Plishtim. Okay, in verse 3, the prophet tells us like this. Look what it says. ותכבד המלחמה אל שאול, וימצאו המורים אנשים בקשת, ויחל מאוד מהמורים.
The battle then concentrated against Saul. The archers, the men with bows, found him, and Saul was terrified of the archers.
Okay. Why Saul was so terrified of the archers? What's happening with the archers, those that using the bow and the arrow? Now, what exactly happening here? We have to understand that what it tell you here, that the Plishtim killed the three sons of Shaul HaMelech. They killed them. Now the Plishtim was focusing on Shaul HaMelech. What does it mean, focusing on Shaul HaMelech? They didn't want to kill him. The archers, every time that they shoot the arrow, they hit them on the leg, they hit them on the arm. That means they wanted to cripple Shaul to catch him alive. Okay? Once that they're going to catch him alive, they're going to torture him. And Shaul started to realize that. And Shaul was so frightened of the archers that he realized that they don't want to kill him. Because those archers, if they can hit his arm or they hit his legs, they can easily hit him on the head or on the chest or on the heart. They can easily kill him. No, but they didn't want to kill him, said the Mefarshim. The Mefarshim explained that they wanted to torture him while he's alive. Rabotai, does that sounds familiar? What's happening with the Plishtim? Isn't that what's happened on the 7th of October?
Yeah.
The Plishtim, Rabotai, where's the Plishtim? The city of Plishtim was in the south. Where? Gaza. Plishtim is in Gaza. Nothing changed. Shaul HaMelech see that the archers, they're very clever. They got an order not to kill Shaul because they was focusing on Shaul. Shaul was killing in the Plishtim, but the archers that was behind decide that they're going to catch him alive. That was the order. And Shaul was petrified when he realized what's happening. And verse 4, look what's happening here. ויאמר שאול לנושא כליו, שלוף חרבך, ותקרני בה, פן יבואו הערלים האלה, ותקרוני, והתעללו בי, ולא אבא נושא כליו, כי ירא מאוד, ויקח שאול את החרב, ויפול עליה.
Saul said to his armor bearer, draw your sword and stab me with it, lest these uncircumcised people come and stab me and make sport of me. But his armor-bearer did not consent, for he was very frightened. So Saul took the sword himself and fell upon it.
What's happening in this verse? In this verse, the prophet described that Shaul realized that the archers any minute gonna shoot the arrow and he can't move anymore. That means that they make him already crippled. He can't run. He can't move. They want to catch him alive. He realized what's happening, what the Plishtim planning. What is the plan of the Plishtim? He said to the boy that carry his sword, his stud, whatever you call it, the armor, please draw your sword and I want you to kill me. The boy that carried the armor looked at Shaul and refused to do it. The Mefarshim asked, why are you not stabbing him? You see what they're planning. But Rabotai, look at what's happening. That youngster that was carrying the armor didn't leave Shaul behind himself. We'll see what's happened with him. The Mefarshim explained that Shaul was petrified of the Plishtim because he knew the cruelty. He knew how cruel the Plishtim, and he knew how they're going to abuse him while he's alive. So Shaul saying to the youngster, please, stab me. The youngster decided that he's not going to do that. Ask the Mefarshim why. The Mefarshim say that the boy himself said to himself, how me as a Jewish person, I'm going to kill the king that's been anointed? That's the Messiah, that's the Mashiach. I can't kill the Shaul HaMelech explained, the Mefarshim explained that Shaul HaMelech, we'll see in the next verse, when he see that the Noseh Kilim, that means the youngster doesn't want to do that, we'll see what he's going to do. He actually himself, that when he saw that Shaul HaMelech, when Shaul HaMelech saw that the boy that carries armor refused to kill him, Shaul HaMelech took his sword, put it by his neck, and with all of his weight, he fell on the sword. But he didn't being killed. He was dying, but he didn't kill himself. That means here become Rabotai Shaila the Mefarshim asked, is Shaul HaMelech committed suicide or not? Is it Avera or not? We'll speak about it. We'll give the answer to all of that. But we'll see soon in verse, I think, 5, that boy, when he saw what happened to Shaul, because he refused to kill Shaul, he killed himself. That's verse 6. But the Mefarshim say, wait a minute, is Shaul HaMelech committed suicide or not? Okay, so let me explain the halacha and then we'll try to understand what's happening with Shaul. Today, people that commit suicide, because they're underneath tremendous stress, it's not considering ibed atzmo ladat. That means that he committed suicide and he can't be buried in a Jewish grave, cemetery. In the case of Shaul, Shaul HaMelech knew, we explained, that he going to this war, he gonna die, and 3 of his kids gonna die. That means 4 of them gonna die, plus many of the children of Israel. Shaul HaMelech knew that that's gonna be his atonement to what he caused with Nov Ira Kohanim, that he killed the city of Nov, the city of the priests. That's going to be atonement. Shaul HaMelech knew that if he going to be captured alive by the Plishtim, they're going to torture him, they're going to abuse him, and they're not going to allow him to die. They're going to try to stop his death, but they're going to torture him until the last second. Said the Mefarshim, because he realized that, it doesn't consider as committing suicide. That's how the Radak, Rabbi David Kimhi. Rabbi David Kimhi born, we explained, he born in France. He born 865 years ago. And he said, anyway, Shaul knew that he's going to die. It's not something new for him. Shaul knew that he's going to die in a war, him and his kids and many other of the soldiers of Israel. And he already was wounded. But he didn't want to be tortured by the Plishtim. In verse 5, and that verse, as we explained that, let's read it, what's happening here. In verse 5, וירא נושא כליו כי מת שאול, ויפול גם הוא על חרבו, וימות עמו.
When the armor bearer saw that Saul was dying, he also fell upon his sword to die with him.
What's happened here? The armor saw what Shaul done, that he put the sword by his neck and he fell on a sword and he was dying. The boy that carried the armor realized what's happening. He said that if that's what's happened with my king, he's going to do the same. The only difference that he died. When he put himself on a sword, he died, while Shaul was dying, but he's not dead yet. That's the big difference. In verse 6, the prophet tells us, וימות שאול ושלושת בניו ונושאי כליו, גם כל אנשיו ביום ההוא יחדיו.
So Saul and his 3 sons and his armor bearer, as well as all of his men, died together on that day.
And this verse, the prophet described that Shaul HaMelech, his 3 sons, the boy that carried the vessel, the armor,
Amen.
and many of the soldiers of Israel that gone to the war against the Plishtim die. That means exactly like he asked Shaul, and Shaul HaMelech told him when he going to ask with Eshet Ov. Exactly what Shaul HaMelech told him happened. And verse 7, ויראו אנשי ישראל אשר בעבר העמק ואשר בעבר הירדן, כי נסו אנשי ישראל וכי מתו שאול ובניו ויעזבו את הערים וינוסו ויבואו פלישתים וישבו בהם.
When the men of Israel, who were on the other side of the valley and on the other side of the Jordan, saw that the men of Israel had fled and that Saul and his sons had died, they abandoned their cities and fled, and the Philistines came and settled in them.
Rabotai, here the prophets describe the disaster that's happened. Not only that Shaul and his men and his son lost the war, and many of the children of Israel died in the valley, something had happened. Now the Plishtim put such a fear that these certain people of Israel that, as the prophet said, that lived in the valley across the Jordan, left their houses as is and fled, and the Plishtim came and took over and lived there. The Radak explained, Rabbi David Kimchi explained something extraordinary. He said that the Plishtim have everything ready. They came and took cities ready. Why? Because those cities didn't have a surrounding wall. So the people that stay in those cities realized that they have no defense. So they fled. They left the city and ran away. But what does it tell us? It tells us something very interesting. Mm-hmm. A city that they didn't have a surrounding wall, the people there in general was very strong. Why? Because they realized that they're strong. They don't need a wall to protect them. Even those people, when they saw what's happening with the Plishtim, ran away. You understand? Even those people ran away. So we reached to a situation that was a big problem in Israel. What does it mean? That all the Jewish people was petrified now from the Plishtim. Even those that considered themselves strong was petrified, left their houses, left the city, and ran away. The Plishtim only have to come to move in, no problem, to take over. Look at what stage in a Jewish history what's happened with the Plishtim. And let's look in verse 8 how cruel the Plishtim are. The Plishtim are very cruel people, and nothing changed. Until today, nothing changed. Look at verse 8. ויהי ממחרת, ויבואו פלישתים, לפשט את החללים, וימצאו את שאול ואת שלושת בניו נופלים בהר הגלבוע.
Are you do 9 as well with it?
No, just... only 8. Only 8.
Okay.
Only 8.
Right. It happened the next day when the Philistines came to plunder the corpses that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa.
What's happened here? The following day, after we said that at night they never used to fight, during the day the Plishtim came and start to looten the bodies. What did they find? They found the bodies of Shaul HaMelech and his 3 sons. Listen to what I'm saying. The following morning, the Plishtim came and started to loot the bodies of the deceased, the soldier, those that died. Why? Because they wanted their clothes, they wanted whatever they have, shoes, whatever they have. That's the Plishtim. Look how cruel they are. And verse 9, look what it says here. Mm-hmm. After they found the body of Shaul and his 3 sons, look what it says. ויכרתו את ראשו, ויפשיטו את כליו, וישלחו בארץ פלישתים סביב לבשר בית עצביהם ואת העם.
They severed his head and stripped off his gear, and sent heralds all about the land of the Philistines to inform those in the temple of their idols and the people.
After they found Shaul HaMelech and his son dead, what did they done? They chopped the head of Shaul, cut it off. Look how cruel they are. But that wasn't enough. The prophets say that they send messengers to tell everyone that Shaul is dead and his three sons and they win the war. But the prophet says something very interesting. Look what it says. That they took all the, what do you call it? The armored gear that he have on him, all the gear,
the one
all
he's
the
wearing,
war gear that he was wearing, they took it off. Why? Why did they took that? Why it was so important that the prophet tell us that the Plishtim took all the armored gear from Shaul HaMelech? What difference does it make to me? If you tell me that they come to loot the bodies, obviously. What's the Hidush, Rabotai? That they took the armored vessel from Shaul. That's the question that we have to understand. They took it, and we'll see what they done with that. In verse 10, וישימו את כליו בבית עשתרות, ואת גווייתו תקעו בחומת בית שאן.
They placed his gear in the temple of Ashtaroth, and they hung up his remains upon the wall of Beth Shan.
What's happened here? Rabotai, they took all of his armored gear and they took it to where? To the house of idols. To desecrate, okay, and to thanks who? The idols. Once that they done that to Shaul HaMelech, the Radak and the Malbin. Malbin is Rabbi Meir Lebush ben Yehiel Michael Weiser. He born in Ukraine 216 years ago. That when they chopped the head of Shaul, they took the armored clothes and the head of Shaul, and they took it to the house of Avodah Zarah. Why? Rabotai, listen why. At the beginning of the book, we learn that when they took the Holy Ark, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought down the Avodah Zarah that's called Dagon. The first time it fell. Next time they were singing to the wind. The second time when it fell, the head of the Avodah Zarah of Dagon rolled up, been chopped. The Plishtim dan midah keneged midah. What is Dagon? What is this kind of Avodah Zarah that's called Dagon? Dagon, the Mefarshim explain that the top part of the body looked like a human being. The bottom part of the body like a fish, like a mermaid, but it's a male, not a female. When the Plishtim saw the body of Shaul, they chopped the head. They took his armored gear, they took it where? To Avodah Zarah that called Ashtaroth. Ashtaroth, it's like a flock. They took it there, and now they can do to desecrate the king of Israel, to do revenge to what's happened to them. What did they done? They took it all to that Avodah Zarah. Why? Because they realized what's happened with them. They never forgot. Remember the first war that they managed to take the holy ark that was in Hofni and Pinhas and Hofni, the two sons of Eliah Cohen. They took it to their cities and then they put it in a house of idols. And then all the disaster started. And then they sent back the holy ark. Okay, what do we learn from it? That now they realize that Shaul, they chopped his hand, revenge one for one. But not only that, look what it says. ואת גווייתו תקעו בחומות בית שאן. They took the body, his body, and his three kids, naked. How did they put it? They hang it on a wall of Beit Sha'al. How did they hang it on a wall? With nails. They nailed them into the wall. Look how cold there was. Naked. But they did, buried them. No. The Plishtim are very cruel. Shaul HaMelech and his three kids, what did they done it? To desecrate the body and to humiliate the Jewish people. Hey, Plishtim, we never finished with them. So what's happened? The prophet described that the Plishtim wanted to desecrate the body of Shaul and his kids and to embarrass the Jewish people to show how weak we are. They hanged them or they nailed them into the wall naked, the wall of Beit Sha'an. Verse 11. וישמעו אליו יושבי יבש גלעד את אשר עשו פלישתים לשאול.
The inhabitants of Yabesh Gilead heard about him and what the Philistines had done to Saul.
If you remember, I just want to refresh your memory. Yabesh Gilead, it was a city that's been put into a situation by Nahash. Remember? Nahash Ammoni. And they've been, if you remember, he given them 7 days to decide if they're going to surrender or he coming and killing everyone. But he told them, if you're going to surrender, I'm going to take the right eyes of every male. And we explain why the right eyes, so they can't shoot the arrow, they can't focus on a target when they're fighting. He said, if you're not going to surrender, I'm going to kill all of you. And then Shaul came and saved them. That's the people of Yabesh Gilead. Now, the heroes of Yabesh Gilead and the entire city of Yabesh Gilead heard about what's happened to Shaul and his son. How the Plishtim desecrating the body of Shaul and his 3 sons. And verse 12, look what it says. ויקומו כל אנשי חיל, וילכו כל הלילה, ויקחו את גוויית שאול ואת גוויות בניו מחומות בית שאן, ויביאו יבשה וישרפו אותם שם.
And all the daring men arose and went throughout the night and took the remains of Saul and the remains of his sons from the wall of Bethshan and came back to Yavesh.
Okay. What's happening here?
Sorry. They burned them there.
Yeah. What's happened? What exactly happened? The member of Anshe Yavesh Gilad remember how Shaul HaMelech saved them from Nahash Amoni that I mentioned. They remember the favor that he done for them, and they show gratitude. They walk all night, and they took a big risk. They put their life on risk. They took the body off the wall of Bet Sha'an without the Plishtim knowing, and immediately they took them back and burned the bodies. Why? Because they got decayed. That's pshat of the dvarim. Until here's the pshat. But what's happened? Mahari Kara, Rabbi Yosef Kara, that born in France 960 years ago, explained that when it said that they burned the bodies, okay, Vaisrefu otam sham, and they burned them there, he said they didn't burn the bodies. He said because the body was so rotten in the cave, because they left them hanging on the wall for a few days, they put special spices, okay, and they burn on top of the body, that it will smell better, and then they bury them. That's Mari Kara. The Radak explained that that was the custom that used to be done to kings in their time in their bodies. Hazal explained that Anshe Yavesh Gilad, the member, those heroes from the city of Yavesh Gilad, remember how did he save them from Nahash Amoni. Therefore, they show a gratitude and they put their life in danger to save the humiliation from Shaul and the three sons. By the way, they done it quietly, and if you look, the Plishtim didn't even realize what's happened. That means that they took it, buried them without making a big noise. In verse 13, and with that, that's the end of the verse. Look what the prophet said. ויקחו את עצמותיהם, ויגברו אותם תחת האשל, ביבשה, ויצומו 7 ימים.
They then took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Yavesh. And they fasted 7 days. Sure.
Rabotai, from here we see, and we're learning, that they didn't cremate the bodies. Because it said Vaisrefu otam in a previous verse, we would think that they burned the body. No. But in this verse, the prophet said, no. They buried the bones. Okay, so they didn't cremate them. He tell us where did they bury them? And then the prophet says something extraordinary. That the entire member of the city of Yavesh fasted for 7 days. Why after 7 days? I understand that people have to say Shiva. You say Shiva because he's a king, this is a prince. You have to mourn. So you mourn for 7 days. But the prophet doesn't say that they only mourn. Look what it says. Vayatsumu shivat yamim. And they fasted for 7 days. What's the hidush? Why dafka 7 days? Rabotai, the Radak, Rabbi David Kimhi, get into it to understand. And he explained like this. He said the member of Yavesh Gilad didn't forget what Shaul HaMelech, how he saved them from death, or from being every male will be blemished. For that Nahash Amoni given him 7 days, and on those 7 days, They're gone to Shaul to ask him what to do. Shaul tell him, give us time and we'll come back to you. Okay? And when they return, they tell him, we decide that we're going to surrender to you, but give us another few days. It was 7 days that Nahash Ammoni given him, you remember? And during those 7 days, Shaul start the strike against Nahash Ammoni and his soldiers. And he saved the member of Yavesh Gilad, Seder Adak, the member of Yavesh Gilad, to remember the 7 days that they had. They never forgot the fear that they had for 7 days, that every day coming closer and closer, that Nahash Ammoni gonna kill them. They said to show gratitude, Hakarat Tov, to Shaul HaMelech, how he saved them from Nahash Ammoni. For that, they fast for 7 days. So what do you learn from here? You learn something extraordinary. That the member of Yavesh Gilad, they're the only one, listen to that and remember that, because we're going to speak about it, that eulogize and moan for Shaul HaMelech and his sons. Where's the rest of Israel? The prophet doesn't speak about it. We're going to learn that David HaMelech, 50 years from now, going to be in a big problem. Going to be a famine in the time of the Jewish people, in the time of David HaMelech as a king. And what's going to happen? David HaMelech is going to ask the Almighty, why there is famine? What's happening? And we'll see why. So remember, in this verse, we explain a word right in the end that the member of Yavesh Gilad, the entire people fasted for 7 days, and they, the one that eulogized and buried Shaul and his 3 sons. Robert, I know that it was a very harsh chapter, that we talk about the death of Shaul, but we also explained that that was his atonement for killing the city of Nov Eira Kohanim, the Nov, the city of the Kohanim, that was 85 Kohanim there, except one Kohen that managed to escape. It was the little boy Eviatar, the son of Ahimelech, the king, the high priest. Everyone got killed by the order of Shaul HaMelech. And that's why Shaul HaMelech have to be killed to do tshuva, to do atonement to what he ordered to kill the city of Nov. Be'ezrat Hashem, Rabotai, next Sunday, we start, with that we finish the first volume of Shaul. The book of Shaul is 2 volumes. Next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, we start the 2nd volume. And we'll see that now starting a new era, the era of David HaMelech, the beginning of the appointing David HaMelech as a king on a Jewish people.